What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another recap and review. Dom and I, as you know, have done this for Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7. It was the final season of that episode, or that show, I should say, and we actually had our guest that we have on tonight, Lex, from Wednesday Pool List. We actually kind of got together and we're like, hey, we all watched The Boys. Let's do a recap and review of this season. And so we are going to be bringing you guys I'm not sure how many episodes per episode we're going to be doing, but today we're going to be talking about the first 4 episodes of The Boys Season 2. We're going to kind of dive into a little bit of the episodes. So welcome, y'all. How are y'all doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing real good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Can't complain. Just got through watching a versus battle, so I'm pretty lit right now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well,
black people, we know what we're talking about.
Well, all right. Well, how was that battle? Who did there was no winner?
Patti LaBelle was on there.
Yeah, it was Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight, so it wasn't like an actual battle at all. It was just basically, just like two like real iconic singers just getting together like old times. It's basically like a family reunion at this point.
Well, there we go.
Because they mean so much to like the. Yes, they made their mark on this world, but they mean so much to the Black community. I mean, they meant so much to like my parents and my grandparents back in the day. So it was just just a big family reunion. Then of course Twitter is all over at this point.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
So it was a good old family reunion that we had tonight on Twitter. So I'm very happy about that.
Well, that is good. I'm glad that you had that fun time. But we're here to talk about The Boys Season 2. Now, the first episode is called The Big Ride. And on IMDb, I don't know if y'all trust that site or if y'all go to that for any kind of material, but on IMDb, it gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Really, this episode was kind of like a recap. It was almost like a half a recap and half of a new beginning, almost. Y'all have any points to this that y'all want to talk about?
Yeah, it was an easy introduction. So the first, coming off of the last season, you kind of wonder where they are. It's a huge cliffhanger, probably one of the biggest cliffhangers I've seen in TV, especially from someone that's like, I've read the comic, which is a whole nother conversation because a lot of people like books more than they like the live action, but I actually like the live action more than the book in this instance. But it was a big cliffhanger because it deviates from the book big time very early on. And so it just comes out of left field. And so this one picks it up. And I've talked to a few people, and it does start out slow, and it has a few slow moments when we talk about episode 4. But I don't think it was that slow. I think it was perfectly paced, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It was it definitely, I don't know about y'all, but I tend to not. I'll say this. I don't watch the previous seasons before the new seasons just because of timing, and I may watch the last episode and then so I can get ready for the new season. But for this instance, I didn't watch the last episode because it's been a while since I saw the first season, and so I kind of had to do my own little recap and review.
It depends on how long. Like if it's a way long time, then I'll probably watch a few episodes.
Yeah,
but that one I didn't watch any. I didn't watch it the second time. I probably should have. Now that I'm 4 episodes in.
But I think episode 1 was, again, like I mentioned, it definitely was needed. Obviously, for those who, like for us again, who didn't watch, to update ourselves, just to kind of see what happens and where our team is at. And actually, I kind of want to know: are you on the 7 side, or are you on like the Huey side? I guess the boys side.
The boys, yeah, that's the boys side.
Yeah.
I guess I can. I'm on the boys side at this point. I don't know why I be on the 7 side. It's just a bunch of people full of assholes and racists at this point.
Yeah, that is true.
Except for Starlight, she's like the only redeemable one, and maybe
she's my favorite. She is my favorite.
But actually, A-Train is my favorite on the 7 for some reason.
I'm starting to like him a lot, though. I'll say that.
We'll talk about that when we talk about it's his character's weird to me in this season. He's weird to me. I don't know. I like it seems different because it's like it's changed in this season. Now you have the boys, you have the 7, and then you have Vought at this point because they don't really seem to be working together. It's the boys, the 7, Homelander, and Vought. Like it's everybody. None of them are all on the same page.
They're all kind of
so and then the show's really good about making you see those different characters' points of view or those different sections' point of view. So you see Vought is a business, and they don't treat the 7 as people; they treat them as products. So you see it from their point of view. Not saying it's right. You see the 7 as they're like movie stars, and so they don't really care about what they're doing. They're worried about their benefits, how much money they're making, legal stuff. You see Homelander; he just wants to be praised.
He wants to be the center of attention.
Yeah, he just wants to be the greatest hero on earth, and to the point where he'll do anything to get that. Yeah,
anything.
And then you have the boys, and they're all they're not heroes either, which is what I like about it because they're not traditional heroes.
No,
they're not necessarily,
they've all done pretty messed up stuff in their past.
Yeah, they're not necessarily doing this out of the kindness of their heart. They all have their different reasons, and they all have their different backgrounds, and so there's no real good guy. I think Starlight's the only one that's a good guy in this whole damn show. Queen Maeve is growing on me though. Yeah,
she's got her moments.
Yeah, she's. I think she's gonna have a better story arc. Maybe she's. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I do like the fact that they're kind of taking their own they're kind of going in different directions. So like in season 1 we had the boys versus the 7, and so it was kind of like those two. And then now in this season we're seeing a lot of story arcs take their own kind of direction. Mainly because we do find out that Vought knows about Compound V, and Compound V, for those who haven't watched The Boys or is very confused, is basically this drug that is given to kids at birth that make them into superheroes. We saw a glimpse of that in the end of season 1 when Butcher had the baby and he had his head. And he basically cyclops his way through. It was a really good scene. But
now all those parents are getting paid off too, so it's not like they're just donating. So these parents are basically, you think about it like parents that make their kids go to pageants and stuff like that. Like they're doing all these things, using their kids as a way to make money, and so you're just like, okay, for X amount of money, you do whatever you want to my kid, and they get to be a superhero. So it's like. Perfect.
It made me think about Starlight's mom, because you can tell from the first season how controlling she was to her as a child. She was like, I want my kid to be something, when she grows up, and then so it was like a goal, for her to try to get into 7, and now that she's in 7 now, her goal is complete at this point. So it's just kind of like when you start talking about Compound V, it made me think back to Starlight's mom back in the first season.
Right.
Yeah.
So she had that. It almost kind of reminded me of Dance Moms.
Toddlers and Tiaras or whatever that show's called.
Yeah, exactly. But no, we find out that these superheroes that we know are given at birth Compound V, and it just takes a wild turn because now it's we also have Huey and Starlight's kind of mission on outing Vought, and Starlight knows this friend from her past.
That was a weird scene. Gecko.
Yeah, Gecko.
Weird scene, man.
This
is a weird show, and I like weird shows.
It really is. So when we talk about these scenes, just know that they're kind of weird, but
it's a weird show, man.
Gecko is basically this I don't even want to call him a superhero, but he's basically this guy who has the ability to reform his limbs. And he is basically he was basically in a hotel with his arms sitting there, and he had someone pay him to cut off his arm to get.
He's like a sex worker, but like a weird kink sex worker. Yeah,
exactly. And basically at the end, he was like, I can, I'll let you chop off my dick. And the guy was like, all right. And then so it was just really weird.
Jesus, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it was really weird. But Starlight basically got a video of him doing that and said, hey, you get me compound V or I'll out you to the public. And
because he works in the lab.
Yeah, he works in the lab at Vought, and basically they get compound V and they out Vought, and the public now knows that Vought is giving these babies and these parents compound V to make them into superheroes, which is kind of crazy. Like I don't know,
so crazy.
I guess you would have to be a very egotistical parent to want to, give your kid that, that drug. I don't know. As we saw, Compound V did help A-Train with his speed in the first season. But because of that, he started having like medical issues, and he had his heart attack, and he's dealing with that in this season. And so
that's so weird. Another thing in episode 1 though is you see Homelander going through a lot of different stuff, which is I'm going to start by saying he's the best villain in live action TV that I've ever seen, like hands down. Just gave me the creeps anytime he was on screen, man.
Can we talk about what
creeps
he did to that one hero, like at the beginning of the episode?
The blind one.
Yes, I was just like, oh my God, why would he do that?
Out of the gate, I was just like, Jesus.
Now, and then Ashley was just standing there so terrified. I was like, I would be the same way too. And then he was just like yelling at her, like, "Look at me, Ashley! Look at me!"
I couldn't work with him, man.
All she was doing was trying to help, man. She was just trying to help.
Hey, I would have just died on that spot.
But the thing about it is, he like went up to the guy and he's like, "Oh, so you can't see me?" And he was like, "No, sir. All my senses are heightened." And he goes, "Oh, okay." But he just like popped him right in the ears.
Yeah,
and he started bleeding. I was like, "Whoa!" Like, hold on.
You could have just said no. You could have just said no. He's not going to be in the 7. But no, he definitely had to make a point. For some people to say that this episode started out slow or the season started out slow, I have to disagree, man. That
absolutely
episode 1 started out with you see the boys, they're in hiding. Now they're fugitives, and they're in this like weird area with these drug dealers or whatever. And then there's a telekinetic super terrorist now that's introduced in the first episode. They go to try to give information to Raynor, one of the main characters, CIA from the first season, which is cool. I like that character a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I like the actress a lot. And then her head explodes. Like, what was that? They don't even really ever explain that either. It just happened, and that's kind of like a background thing that happened and that's going on in the season right now. And Huey and Starlight are trying to extort Vought, and Homelander's going through his stuff. He found his son. We learned that in the last episode. And he's weirdly trying to be a dad, and
that fits it perfect. Like he's trying to be like
so strange.
Insert himself into the picture, but like at a very rapid speed. Like the fact that when he was throwing the baseball with his son, and he was like, "Yeah, my dad played threw this ball when he was in the World Series or whatever," and he was like, "My dad never did that," and it's like,
yeah,
what are you like? And the kid's even like,
Yeah, and then the actress that plays Becca is so good because every time they show her face, you see she just displays that terror, just that she just feels uncomfortable, and she's so good because she doesn't even really talk that much in it, but you just kind of see it on her face, and all that stuff happens, and then you also have the Deep back in the season as a main side character, and he's going through his stuff. He's come to terms with how terrible he was, and he's depressed and drinking, and then he joins this cult, or this cult tries to get him to join. I don't know if he joins it in the first episode, called the Church of the Collective, and their main goal is to get him to join the 7, but they're really pushing for him to join the 7, so they have some ulterior motive too, and later on in the season, maybe episode 2 or 3, Stormfront even mentions it, like, you sound like you're joining the Church of the Collective, you just call him a weirdo or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so there has to be another side, background story in that too. It's a lot of stuff in that first episode.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's also really good because I'm glad that it's a lot because it tells us where each character is at.
Yeah, definitely needed.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the Deep, he is in Sandusky, Ohio, and he is kind of just losing it really. Yeah. He's at a water park with the kids, and he's like dumping the water on the kids and stuff.
That actor does a really good job too. I really like that actor.
Yeah. The Deep he's an asshole, but he's one of those funny guys. It's kind of like the scene where he's I think it's in episode 2 maybe, where he's like his gills are talking to him.
Yeah. After they give him the shrooms.
Yeah. And he starts singing and stuff, and it's just it's a funny guy. He's real funny. But we meet what is the guy's name? Archer? No, that's not his name.
I don't remember it either.
I cannot remember his name, but we meet him, who basically introduces him to this new cult or whatever. And I did notice they made sure to like the camera angled on the Frisca a lot, the drink.
Yeah, that's got to be something to do with the cult.
It's got to be. Like,
he did it a lot. Every time that the Deep was freaking out, he said something about the damn Frisca.
Hey, do you want a Frisca? And it's like, yeah, sure. It's like, yeah.
Every time.
It's kind of like the what is that effect where every time something happens, you give someone a treat, and then every time they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of like that. But so we learned that he's going through some stuff. A-Train is reintroduced to us after being in the hospital from having said heart attack.
So in episode 1, he's still in a coma, though.
Yeah.
But I think it's weird because in episode 1, he's still in a coma, and that should be everything that happened in episode 1.
Yes. We basically learned that Vought is trying to be outed by Starlight and Huey. The boys are basically in hiding under this like gold kind of one of those small out of nowhere
convenience stores.
Convenience stores. Yeah. And they're basically in hiding with the drug people, like you said, Lex. And then we have we didn't even talk about Kimiko. She's trying to learn English, it seems. Yeah. Or she's
learned how to
write and stuff. And so again, we just basically are reintroduced to all these characters and where their story goes. So
one big thing I thought about episode 1 that I forgot was, while Homelander's going through all this stuff, he goes upstairs, which in the first season they never went upstairs. It was never they were told they weren't allowed to. They never did. And so he goes upstairs to talk to Stan. I think that's his name.
Yeah. Giancarlo's character.
So he goes and talks to Stan, and you think like, all right, so Homelander's about to kill this guy, and you think that Stan's going to buckle under him. There's a few times that it makes it seem like he's about to, and he never does. He's just like, whatever. And then you see Homelander back down after a little while and just get pissed off and leave. And so I was like, man, this guy has to have something against all the superheroes. He has to be that confident and like not care about, he sees what they all can do and to not even flinch at any of them. He has to have some sort of secret on how to shut them down or something.
Yeah,
he didn't budge, man.
No, he has the ultimate power.
Such a good character.
over everything.
Yeah, I always think he might be like a superhero himself. He just didn't out himself to the world yet.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, he basically told the background of what Vought was through Homelander. Homelander, he was like, "Do you know who Vought was?" Or and Homelander was like, "Oh yeah, he's this guy." And he's like, "No. That's what we tell to the public." And it's like, "Oh, okay." Now, so we're starting to learn as viewers what's really going on. But then, like you said, I think that'll end episode 1. And then episode 2 title is called Proper Preparation and Planning. And so basically this is where we are reintroduced to Butcher. He is back with the boys. And first off, that character, what is his name?
Carl Urban.
Yes. He literally, he has been in every like comic book, like genre.
Yeah, he's a nerd. He's a huge nerd.
He is amazing as Billy Butcher, and he plays the role perfectly, honestly.
I love Carl Urban. Yeah, I forgot about that because for some reason in episode 1, Huey he's just not for some reason, I know why, but Huey just doesn't want to do it. And Mother's Milk Eminem is like, no, I don't want to mess with it. He's just kind of trying to survive and get back to his family. Huey just doesn't want to do it. He wants to do things his way. He doesn't want to involve Butcher at all. I guess they know he's alive. But Frenchie obviously thinks he needs him, so he reaches out to him. And then this is where you get reintroduced to him. And he goes and talks to Mallory, I think, in this episode.
Yes.
His old contact. So that was cool to see her again. Because she's supposed to be, if she taught him everything, she's got to be badass.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we basically we kind of see what Butcher has been up to. He kind of woke up into a breakfast parking lot or something, or what restaurant was he in, or was it just kind of, I don't even know.
Hey, it was just some random restaurant. And I was going to say too, like they just released like a little mini episode, I want to say, on what happened with Butcher between season 1 and season 2. So I haven't watched it yet.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have yet, but I plan on watching on it soon, so we could probably talk about that in the next video that we do.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch that.
Sure. But we basically see that he wakes up in this parking lot, and he goes in and he's trying to write down the location or what he remembers from his wife, where she's at. And basically Vought is kind of hiding her in the woods. I was never understood if it was from, are they hiding her from Butcher, or they're just hiding her because.
Well, apparently it's like this giant, as we see in episode 4, it's apparently this giant Vought compound, I guess, where they raise superheroes and kind of keep them in a controlled environment. So Butcher says later on, he is an asset to Vought. They're going to make sure he grows up, make sure he has everything he needs so that they can use him as a weapon later on. And so she made a deal with them to keep Homelander away from them, basically, so that he never knows they're alive. In return, that she just leaves her life completely and just goes there to raise him. So, yeah, it's like a Vought compound, which I thought was weird because they, in the end of season 1, it's just a house. You just think it's like a regular house in a regular neighborhood. Yeah. And you're wondering why Homelander didn't kill Butcher. That was random. Of course, he was dead. Anybody would have thought he'd be dead. But it doesn't happen.
No, and then so he's inside and he's writing this down on a menu or whatever. And the TV starts playing, and it basically out Butcher as a murderer for killing what is
Stillwell.
Stillwell, yes.
Madison? Madeline?
Madeline, I think.
And he kind of looks over at the host, and the host is like, and then he just dips. And so basically we learned that Butcher is, again, like you said, Lex, Frenchie called him in, and so he's there, and he's kind of, as soon as he gets there, from rip or off rip, he is the boss. He is telling people what to do. And Huey's like, why did you call him? You can tell there's there's that love-hate relationship between Huey and Butcher.
Yeah, because Huey trusted him, and then it's very obvious that Butcher only uses all of them to get what he needs. So
he doesn't want any of these friendship relationship kind of I think the only one that he really has a relationship with is Mother's Milk. And he basically is telling him hey, this is what we're going to do. And he's like, are you sure you want to do this? And he's like, I don't know, but we're going to do it. And so they have the plan, and they find out about this soup terrorist who, they see the the surveillance camera of a ship being kind of overthrown or whatever. Or the dock person comes in with his arm completely severed off or burned.
Because the guys that they're staying with, they thought they were just drug dealers, but come to find out they were human trafficking people, or just bringing people in kind of. And one of those people that they brought in was someone with powers. And then I guess on the surveillance, they get into an altercation, and then that last person on the ship ends up throwing the boat at the other guys, and then that guy comes back hurt.
Right, yeah. And then they go to the location of where the boat was crashed and everything, and Kimiko finds this like origami type thing, and she can't speak English. She's trying to show Frenchie what this is and like what the thing is, and she keeps on writing boy and boy, and Frenchie's, I mean, he is like clueless. At this point, I was clueless. I was like, what is she trying to say?
It
Like,
was good. It was interesting for sure.
And at first, when I saw the surveillance camera, I thought it was the Deep. Like, I thought it was him that lifted up the boat and whatnot. And then we come to find out that it's not the Deep, but it is Kimiko's brother, who is the soup terrorist. Yeah. And basically, Butcher makes a deal to bring the soup terrorist in to then get the location of his wife. And so they are now on the look for the terrorist, and they go to this, like, they chase him through the town, and they find him in a like a, looks like a Dollar General or something, some kind of store. And, you know, they're sneaking through the store or whatnot, and Kimiko sees him, and she rushes up to him and hugs him. And we find out that is Kimiko's brother. And as we're seeing this, Huey's like, oh my gosh, like they know each other. And Frenchie's like, oh my God, boy, brother. Like he starts to click. Butcher's not caring. He is, no. I mean, guns pointed right at the guy. He's about to fire, and then Huey dives and tackles him, and the bullet misses. And I mean, and then, you know, the store all gets brought down from Kimiko's brother. Did they ever give us a name for him?
Kenji.
Kenji.
Yeah.
That's right. And so Kenji just basically throws the entire store on top of the guys and takes off. And Kimiko runs after him. Frenchie tries to stop her, and that's it for that scene. It's a very emotional scene, honestly, because you get to see, like, we know Kimiko's, you know, she's a soup, and she doesn't talk. She doesn't show really any kind of emotion, but we see her in this vulnerable state of seeing her brother that she hasn't seen in forever, and then seeing that the people that she's been running with are trying to kill him. So she's kind of like in limbo of, do I want to stay with them and because they've been taking care of me, or do I want to go with my blood? And
she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, and she doesn't know what to do. So she takes off with her brother. And Butcher's really pissed at this moment, like, why did you do that? That's the soup terrorist I have to take in or whatever. And they're like, take in? What do you mean? And, you know, that whole scene. But we're starting to see a little bit of, like, heroism from Huey. You know, Huey's taking charge and saying, this is the way we're going to do it. This is the right way. I thought Huey in this episode took a real big step into, like, not only a character development in the season or in the show, but as an actual character that we're going to be, like, seeing for a long time.
Yeah, he's all over the place in this season. He's all over the place. One thing that we didn't mention from the first season is that they introduced a character named Stormfront.
Yes,
which is the new member of the Seven, and that's why Homelander goes up and talks to Stan.
Yes,
because he was trying to build the team himself. And you get to see a little bit more of her in this season. She's funny. She doesn't really care about Vought. She does a lot of things for the attention, it seems like, and she's funny. And so you don't think she really cares, and she's going to be a hero that just kind of as a comedic relief throughout the whole show. And so they're on this talk show. They're doing like they're trying to, you know, market the girls of the Seven for everybody. And
it's her, Maeve,
Starlight,
yeah.
Yeah, and so they have them on this show. Maeve has to leave because her girlfriend got hurt. And so they're on the set, and they're, you know, she's cracking jokes, and she's like, you know, we need pockets. There's all kinds. It's very funny. They're back and forth, and you just a little bit of Stormfront comes out. You know, Starlight tries to talk to her, and she's like, "Hey, don't talk to me. Like, I know who you are. I know what you're about. Like, please don't talk to me." And so you got to see, like, maybe she's not so funny, like just all funny. And in that whole thing, Gecko from the first season comes back. He didn't want to, but he got the compound V, and he tells her, he's like, hey, if you lose this is your one chance. If something happens and you get outed, they come to me. I'm going to tell them you made me do it or whatever.
And he also had a patch on his eye because they were like doing stuff on him. and and then he basically comes up there, and Stormfront is, again, like you said, she's the characters that puts on a front really well.
She's playing a character. Her character is playing a character,
right,
to hide who she really is.
Mm-hmm. And she is, I mean, very funny, very.
She's a very outspoken character, and you can tell by that scene that she was in with Maeve and Starlight when they were being interviewed. You know, she just kind of like, you know, spoke out, you know, on her opinions on, you know, whatever topics they were talking about. Just like, oh, you know, I really don't agree with, like, you know, what Vault does and whatnot. I kind of just do my own thing, and, you know, she's all about, like, you know, a little bit of feminist here and there and whatnot. Yeah, she just pretty much has, I think you guys already said, like, her own agenda at this point. Just basically, she's basically not following the rules. She's going along her own way.
Right.
But see, I also feel like Vought knows that, and it's like a kind of an allegory to like the social media world. Like, she's going to get quote unquote clicks. She's going to get attention, and so they're okay with her being like, you know, down with Vought. We don't have to listen to them, even though she's still employed by Vought, because there's no reason why she would still be on the 7. They would just send them to, you know, she would get fired. So it's kind of like a fake media thing. And she even says it later on. She's like, this is not like Homelander has fans, but she says, I have soldiers. Like, I'm building these people up to do whatever I say. And so, again, she's playing a character. Like, she's another celebrity doing stuff for the news and doing stuff for social media and stuff like that. And I think that's really cool.
It's really interesting when we actually meet her. She's like on Instagram Live or something, and
exactly.
She's like, "Hey, we're not actually at like a
military war site."
Yeah, she was like, "We're not actually here. Look at the
exactly."
Set." Yeah, she's trying to out these superheroes, the 7, but she also is in the 7. Like it's the very.
And she's doing it for the sake of getting attention. It's like. To get the people on her side.
And I really like you. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. We'll discuss it when we talk about episode 4, but she does talk to Homelander, and she does basically say, hey, you've got fans, but I'm building an army. And it's kind of like, oh, okay.
And she's another character that Homelander is like Superman. Let's just say, if we're talking about who they're supposed to be like. And it's very interesting to see all these characters that are weaker than a Superman type character make him kind of step back.
Yeah.
And it's mainly his ego is his weakness. And so these people test his ego, and then he steps back and he gets weak again. So it's like, it's very interesting to see some of that.
Absolutely. But then, so we are on the chase. The boys are on the chase for Kimiko and her brother. And I believe they catch up to him in the middle of a street. Or I might be jumping ahead. I'm not too sure. But basically, they do find him, and they take, or I'm sorry,
I think they catch him in this one at the end of the episode.
They catch him in the street, and they basically just take him in. And Butcher then kind of tells everyone, like, I know where my wife is, and this is why I'm doing it. And everybody's like, no, you're lying. Like, this is not true. And he's like, no, like, I made a deal to bring in the soup terrorist. Then I will get to see my wife. And they're like, oh, so you're just doing this for you. And then that's when he starts saying, no, mother's milk, I'm doing it because you can see your children. Frenchie, you can do this. And Huey, you can go back to normal living, like all this other stuff. And then he starts tying them all in and saying, let's do this. But it's not, he really doesn't mean it. At least I didn't.
You see how pissed off he gets when Huey messes him up. Like, jumps at, tackles him, and misses a shot. Because at the end, after they catch him and everything's fine, he's still mad about it, and he punches. Like, this is aggression. You usually see not Homelander, but Butcher as a cool character that keeps his, in all these crazy situations, pretty much keeps his cool. But in this situation, he knocks Huey to the ground in anger, and then just gets in the car and leave him or anything, which I think is a good sign. But still, like, wants everyone to know how serious the situation is for him.
And then we also finally get to see A-Train kind of develop his story a little bit more. He kind of confronts Starlight with the compound V, and it's in this little bag. Gecko gives it to her in this little bag that has like tampons or whatever in it, and she can't put it anywhere because they play back to what Stormfront was saying. They don't have pockets, so she can't put it in a pocket. She can't put it in anywhere, and so she's trying to put it in her boot. But A-Train catches her and was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, why are you putting this in your boot?" And she's like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And she kind of puts it behind her back, and she does actually put it in Stormfront's backpack that she has. And A-Train is like, "What do you mean? Like, I just saw you." And he goes to pat her down, and he doesn't find anything. And then he's like, "Oh, okay. Like, I guess I don't know what I was talking about." And then he leaves. A-Train is a very unique character to me in this season because he is battling with like almost like an addiction. I mean, it is an addiction, but he's also dealing with the addiction, with the fame of being in the 7, and it's just a bunch of things compiling on him. And he just got out of a coma. He just had a heart attack. Like,
I thought that was so weird. I thought that in episode 1 he's in a coma and they have him hooked up to all the machines and he's in a coma. And then in this season he just pops up when they're at their interview. Like, nothing changed. And I know eventually they show that he's having complications, but in this one he just pops up in costume, nothing's changed. And
it was the scene where the reporter's talking to Starlight, and he's like, "How is, we hear that you were A-Train during his time in the hospital?" And she's like, "Yeah, I was with him every day praying, blah blah blah." And he said, "Well, what if we told you that A-Train was here?" And she kind of freaked out. She was like,
I was like, "What?" I thought she was dreaming. I thought she was having a nightmare.
Yeah.
I thought that she was hallucinating. I thought she was dealing with like a grief type thing, because he would just pop up. Like, they had the interview, and then she talked to Stormfront. Stormfront told her not to talk to her. She turned around. He was there. And then she was back at her, place at their headquarters or whatever. And then she puts her phone away and he pops up and he's like, "Who are you talking to?" I thought it was just like a hallucination type thing. But then, no, he's really alive and fine. It was fine, but
it was really funny too, because like he popped up and he was like, "Oh, thank you so much for being there for me." And he like hugged Starlight, and it was kind of like that, I don't know, like, "Why are you hugging me?" type. It was really awkward for both of them. But yeah, he just randomly just is here and there. He doesn't do anything.
Popped up. It's so weird.
Then we see him at that club, and he's like, "All right, guys, I got to go." Which, to kind of go off topic here a little bit, if I was a superhero, man, I would not be in costume at a club. Like I wouldn't be rocking my outfit in a club. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's the same thing of like, you think about athletes. I think about A-Train like an athlete. So I was talking to some guys the other day that have a podcast about sports, and they were talking about different athletes being suspended or being indefinitely suspended for this year because of, smoking pot or doing all kinds of other stuff. And I'm like, man, if you were paying me millions of dollars to, play football, and I'm not trying to undercredit, professional athletes. It's an insane profession. But if you were paying me millions of dollars to do it, I wouldn't do nothing but work out and go to sleep. Right. You couldn't catch me doing anything else but working out, eating what I'm supposed to be eating, and going to sleep. Like that, if millions of dollars to play football, it's the same thing. If I'm getting paid to be a superhero, so not only do I have superpowers, I'm the fastest man on the planet, but on top of that, I'm getting paid probably millions of dollars. I would imagine they're getting paid pretty well.
Oh yeah.
And he's just being an idiot at parties, clubs with his costume. I'm just like, what are you doing, man? It's exactly like professional athletes. Not all of them.
That's a good comparison. Like he does have that like athlete type vibe to him. Like
he's a flashy type of person.
Yeah, and I started thinking about the athlete thing whenever they did like in season 1 they did like the ESPN coverage.
The race.
They did the race, and so I was like, oh yeah, he's like a professional athlete kind of, but like a super athlete.
Well, he leaves the club in this episode, and he actually like walks outside, and he starts having like almost like a mini heart attack. Like he starts like clutching his chest, and he's like, hard to breathe, and like he just like kind of hunches over. And so like you can tell he's not fully recovered, and like he's having a hard time. And so it's just, I don't know. I'm curious to see where he goes in this season, if he can like completely recover or if he doesn't. But also in this episode, don't Starlight and Huey, don't they out them? Isn't this where it comes out, or is that next episode?
It might happen at the end of it, because in this episode, Homelander, after getting embarrassed by Stan, leaves, and you don't know where he goes.
Right.
And in this episode 2, you find out that he goes to the compound with Becca and Ryan, I think his son's name is. Mm-hmm. And he's there, like weirdly there, like saying I love you to him, eating pancakes with him, and doing the same thing, like trying to get him to follow in his footsteps, trying to get him to use his powers and things like that. And he's just like a regular boy, even though come to find out he does have powers. He's just a regular boy, man.
Yeah, the kid has no idea what Homelander's like. He is clueless to what is going on, and like Homelander's just like, nah, like, like I knew when I was at your age, and I was like, what are you trying to say to this kid? Like, what is going on? And he's just like, come on, like, you're my son, like you have these powers. And like at this point, Homelander doesn't know that, at least I don't think he knows that Vought is outed for, or is being outed.
No, I don't think he knows until the 3rd season, honestly. Yeah. Or 3rd episode, I mean.
Yeah, and like he has no idea that Vought is under like the cause of all this. He has no idea.
Because this episode 2 is all about him being there. Like, it's weird. His whole thing is like, he says, I love you to Ryan, and the kid doesn't say anything. And this show is so good about making you feel for all these characters.
Yeah.
Even if they're bad. Like, Homelander is one of my favorite characters of the show. Not because I relate to him, or not because I even would want to be around anybody like that. It's just because he does such a good job, Right. He has this scene where we talked about it before, where he tries to get him to fly. So they're on the roof. My hands were sweating the whole time because I was just uncomfortable. I genuinely felt uncomfortable. Like, my wife and I were laying there watching it, and I was sitting up like crisscross applesauce, like hands sweating. I'm just like, why? Why does he have this kid up there? And I was like, I was telling my wife, I was like, he's not gonna push him off. Like, and then I start thinking, like, he's super evil. He's murdered all these people. Like, of course he's gonna push him up there. And sure enough, he pushes up and then splat to the ground.
He said, "It's so easy. Once you drop, it just hits you." And Ryan's like, I don't want to get. And then Ryan starts like feeling. He like gets scared, and he's like, "Dad, I don't think so." He's like, "Oh, you called me Dad," and he's like,
and then he pushes. I'm just like, "Oh my God!"
It was one of the like. I know we talked about the meme, and like hopefully the meme will pop up right now. But it is the meme of Homelander looking like Thanos and Ryan looking like Gamora, and he's like looking at Gamora. Gamora's looking up at him, and then Gamora's on the ground. And it is one of the like he hits the ground hard,
like face first.
Yeah, and doesn't move after that until Becca comes outside.
Yeah, Becca's like, oh my god, like he's like, what are you doing? Like gets all pissed off, and I'm like. I'm literally sitting there, like my eyes are wide open. I'm like, did he just push his own son off of a roof? Like,
and this show is so good at like in a short time expanding on these characters. So like it really expands on Homelander's. I don't even know how to say it, but like how American in like the worst way he is.
Right.
Like I don't mean that as a compliment. I'm not anti-America or anything, but I'm just saying like in the worst way. So like. They have Spanish breakfast or whatever on certain days of the week, and he's like, why are you doing that? He's like, you can play Spanish with you or with your mom, or you can come outside with me and whatever. And I was just like, little moments, really.
And then that other moment when what was it? He was they had like these group of people like inside this little room, and then he was watching them. Mm-hmm. And then I think the lady who was in charge of that group said like, what makes you think of, like changing the world or something like that?
It was like a focus group.
It was a focus group. And then she was like, what do you think of the term like changing the world? And then Homelander was like, no, changing America. Like you feel like he's like full on American, like in the worst way possible.
Yeah, because even Ashley was like, well, it sounds better this way. And he was like, it doesn't matter. He's like, we're not soldiers for the world. He's like, we're soldiers for America.
Yeah.
It's like, the world has nothing to do with what we got going on over here. And I was like, damn. Because he's Superman. So it would be like.
He has a combination. When I tell people about this, I said, think of Homelander as like a combination of Captain America and Superman put into one.
Yeah, and then the worst version of that.
Yeah, the worst version of that. And
so think of Hydra, Cap, and then Injustice, Superman at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then in that same scene, the focus group lady, she's like, so when we're talking about soup terrorists, and he stops and he was like, tell her supervillains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he doesn't want to use. He wants to. He's so old school. Stormfront's like new school hero, modern superhero, or modern superhero, and he's like old school golden age superhero. He wants it to be heroes versus villains. He wants the American dream. He's got the flag as his cape, which I think his suit is amazing. But he's terrible.
Yeah, he is.
And then we also got to talk about, I want to say this was episode 2 as well, where Homelander goes out to like that cabin in the woods, like in the middle of nowhere. And so he walks in and like, all like a bunch of like, I guess memories start like coming back to him. And then all of a sudden we see somebody in the back coming out. And then as soon as we get like a closer look at that person, it ends up being Madeline Stitwell. So I'm thinking in my head like,
no, that's episode 3.
That was episode 3. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead about this. But
we can keep on going.
Hey,
okay, so hold on before we start talking about episode 3. So episode 2, the last thing we have to talk about episode 2 is A-Train's about to out. He says that he's going to out Starlight.
Oh yeah.
As and you're thinking like, damn, Starlight's done. Which happens a lot of times in this season. But then Starlight's like, hey, I saw a video of you killing your girlfriend. Basically like she had all the track marks.
She brought that up. Yeah. I mean, Starlight has a lot of moments in this season where she's like, we were like, oh, well, she's done. She's
because she's like old school. Where I'm from, you have like kind of down home girls. It's a weird term, but like small town girls that do what their parents say.
Right.
Or like where she's from reminds me of a lot of the small towns that we have in Texas. Mm-hmm. They do exactly what their parents say. They do exactly what the church says. They don't really have their own opinions that they speak on. But after a conversation she has with
Gecko,
with Stormfront.
Oh, I was talking about I was thinking about the one that she had with Gecko in the diner in episode 1. And she
she switched it in that one too. Yeah,
she was, in that one she basically was like, when I was growing up, it was go to church, do this, and he kind of said
like every town in Texas. So yeah, small town, not big town.
He basically was like, oh, do you remember when this boy had a crush on you and wanted to do stuff with you? And she was like, yeah, but I didn't want to. But when I look back, I should have, because my mom always told me that God was watching. And then she was like, but I don't think anyone's up there. And I was like, yo.
She got dark real quick.
Yeah, but she, in this scene, she goes that dark. Like, she's like, if you're going to bring me down, or she's like, if you're going to take me down, then you're coming with me, because if I recall, you're the one who stuck needles in your girlfriend and killed her. And he was kind of like, oh.
And it's because Stormfront told her, if you're going to be a bitch, just be a bitch. Like, she's like, don't be fake. Don't try to be, an all-star, whatever. Don't just be who you are, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise, or that, you'll get more respect that way. And I think you see it, in her face, because she immediately goes into like being scared whenever A-Train's like in her face, and the scene's filmed so well because A-Train's kind of like backing her down, and she's like obviously like scared of what he's saying to her. And then she flips the switch, and then it switches. She starts backing him down, and then he's just like, yeah, and then he dips out. And she's, they have a brief moment where they don't even say anything. She's by herself, and she's kind of like, yeah, that felt good.
Yeah, she's kind of just like looking at him like,
yeah,
like I just won this. Like, you keep on going. So yeah, he confronts her, but she easily makes him leave, and nothing is said, nothing is done,
and it's just kind of like a stalemate.
Yeah.
And the last thing with episode 2 is what we talked about kind of for in episode 1 is the Deep gets the hallucinations from Eagle Archer, I think is his name. Maybe.
Yeah, Eagle the Archer, I want to say.
Yeah. And so he gets the, they're having trouble getting into the Deep. They're trying, the collective, Church of the Collective. They're having a hard time bringing them in. And so Eagle gives them the, hallucinogens. He's like, hey, I got a trick for this. And that's when you see him in his room. And I love this. It's probably my favorite scene of that whole episode. It was a good episode. It's probably my favorite scene. Is you see him actually, you feel for all these characters. He's a very bad person. He treats all these women bad and everything. Very bad person. Wouldn't like him if I knew him in real life.
No.
But you start to feel for him because you see kind of like his psychological problems with, how he looks and stuff like that. And then I instantly knew it was Patton Oswalt's voice. I always know whenever it's him. And these Gil start talking to him, and he has this whole like scene where he just comes to love himself. And it was great. It was my favorite scene of that episode, maybe of the season so far. Basically,
for like a visual, he is like talking to his gills that are on his rib cage, and his gills are basically saying like, "Hey, you're not ugly. You're beautiful." And
they're giant gills. If you haven't seen the show, they're like his rib cage are giant gills. It keeps.
And remember, he took drugs, so like his gills don't actually talk to him. So this is all going on in his head too.
Yeah.
And he is basically just kind of like talking to himself, really, and his gills are like, "You're not ugly. You're beautiful. You've got so much going for you." And he's kind of like, "No, you're not. Like, I'm ugly. Blah blah blah." And he goes back to like these girls that he's been with, and he's like, "You didn't even let her get a chance to talk to you." And she was like, "Because she said I was ugly." And his gills were like, "No, she didn't."
Yeah, so good. And that actor's so good, man. He plays that like broken character so well.
Yeah,
Chase Crawford.
Yeah, so good.
He is at that state too because he is alone. He got kicked out of the 7. He's trying to figure out who he is, and he's gone like on this like alcoholic binge, and like
he's Aquaman in Idaho, which doesn't make sense because there's no like large bodies of water.
They basically secluded him into a place where he could not use his powers at all.
Ever,
Especially, he in the water park, but besides that, he can't do anything. And we leave up on that part of the episode where it's basically just he's talking to himself, and he basically starts banging on the door, and he's like, I'm okay, I'm good. And we end off basically there. We end off with them taking Kimiko's brother, and that's when Butcher punches Huey, and
they get in the van.
Yeah, he's like, "Are you ready to come on?" And he gets in the van, and we leave. And then for episode 3, I was going to say 13. Let me find out what that episode's called. It's called "Over the Hill with the Swords of 1,000 Men."
So it's a weird title.
These titles are not really. I don't know. This episode got a 9.3 out of 10.
I can see it. Okay. So this is what they're Amazon. A lot of people are mad about the weekly thing, which I'm not mad about. I'm not really mad about, but I'm like at the same time when I finish the episode, I'm just like, damn. Like when I finished episode 4, I was like, God, man, one more episode would be nice.
Yep.
But I'm not mad. It gives me something to look forward to every week.
Right, yeah, because I could either go either way. Like the binging part, it was great because if they did come out all at once, I probably would binge it in that weekend for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, they ended up, doing weekly. You have something to look forward to every week.
And so like, we all have jobs and we all have responsibilities. So it's like, and me personally, I have kids, so I can't sit here during the daytime and watch this show where people are like getting blown up and getting cut in half and there's guts. I can't play that until after the kids are asleep. So I'm staying up, till 3 o'clock in the morning, binge watching the show, which I can't do anymore.
Right, because it also came out like on Labor Day weekend too. So like, we all didn't have to go to work on Monday. So I was like, this would have been the perfect time to binge watch the whole series because it's only 8 episodes this season. So
and all my friends are nerds. All my friends are nerds, so it's like a race. Everybody's trying to race to get through, and they're like, "Hey man, did you see that episode?" You're like, "Dang, no, I didn't." He's like, "Oh man, you're missing out." And then you get that FOMO, and you're like, "Damn, now I have to."
Yeah.
do something else.
I know, because JT texts me sometimes too, like, hey, did you finish watching this episode? I was like, nah, I gotta watch it tonight after I get off work. So it's like, dang, okay, I really need to get home just so I can go see it and watch it.
So like the first season of our old host Murph, we still talk all the time, and he messaged me like Friday morning, like at 8, like, hey, did you watch that episode? I was like, no, I didn't watch that episode, man. I went to bed last night like a normal person. It's 8 o'clock. I'm getting ready for the day. I'm about to leave. No, at what time would I watch this hour-long episode? We're like, no. And so it's like one of those things, like, depending on who you are, you might have time to watch it, but I'm glad that they spread it out because it gives everybody a chance to catch up. You know?
Well, this episode was the last of the kind of like beginning of the season.
I feel like it was. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, because they did 3 episodes for the premiere of season 2, the first 3 episodes, until they started doing weekly episodes.
Yeah, which I feel like they did it. They kind of made it like its own mini season for this release because it's like it starts out kind of slow, it picks up in episode 2, and then episode 3 it's got a 9.3 you said?
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of stuff happens in this one. I mean, this was the one we saw all the teasers we got were kind of from this episode. Yeah. So like everything happens and ramps up in this episode, like big time. And so it's like an ending of a season, mini season, I guess.
It is the perfect ending for like the first, like the start, to kick off this season. But basically we start off with, we start off with the boys and I just forgot his name. Kenji.
Yeah. I think it starts with the Homelander. I think it actually, we might have got it wrong. I think this is where he pushes him off the roof, and then Becca comes outside, screams at him, and then you find out that he has powers.
Right.
And he pushes him, and he's like, stay away from her. I hate you. And from him saying, I hate you, he flies off. And then we find out that he flies to that cabin, and then that leads into the weird cabin thing that we were about to talk about.
Yeah.
And, with the shapeshifter, I cannot remember his name.
But we didn't learn it was a shapeshifter, which was so weird because, like you were saying before, he just walks in this cabin, and then you see Madeline come out, and it's the same old weird relationship that they've always had.
Hold on.
Right.
I think that's episode 4.
All of that happens in episode 4?
I think episode 3 was...
episode 3 was with the whale.
Yeah, that was with the whale, and then we also get Madeline Stidwell too.
Yeah, because in episode 4 he goes back, and then you find out that it's doppelganger.
Yes,
and then then he goes back at the end of the episode for the even weirder situation.
Because I was just gonna say, like, with that scene right there, going back to the cabin, and it just made me think, like, how is she still alive? Last time that we saw you, you got laser beam right through your head. Like, you can't, you can't recover from that unless you're a superhero yourself.
And then they blew the house up. Yeah. Too.
Right. So I'm just like, how is she still alive? Like, did Bob make a clone now?
I thought she was a clone. Yeah, I thought she was a clone.
Like, kept her hidden all the time or what?
I thought it was one of those where, like, Vought gave Homelander, like, this one secluded house where it was just her. Yeah. Or like she, like, cloned herself. Again, we had no idea what we know in episode 4. But the biggest thing in this episode is definitely the chase in the ocean. Mm-hmm. And
well, see, that happens as a result kind of the cabin, because he goes to the cabin and he's like venting to Madeline about how much he hates everything right now. She's his weird, like, stepmom or mom or whatever. He's like, everybody's mean to me. Stormfront's trying to take over. Vought doesn't respect me. I have no control of the 7. And she's like, hey, you are the 7. You make the 7. Yeah. Like, you need to go clean house. And I don't remember not having at the end of episode 2, but it happened soon on, because that's what makes him go back.
Yeah.
So he goes back, and you could tell he's, like, awkwardly there, because Queen Maeve is on the phone with her girlfriend, and he's, like, listening to the conversation. And he's like, who's that? You've had this friend forever. Like, I've never heard her or whatever. And he's doing his Homelander thing, like trying to control her, trying to get in her face. And then that's when he finds out that Vought got, outed or whatever.
Because he's like, she was like, I'm just tired of this bullshit. And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, you haven't heard? And he's like, no, I haven't. And it was just one of those, like, again, I mean, it's perfect because he's trying to take control, but then he's like, wait, what happened?
He's blindsided.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Stan comes down from downstairs and he does the boss thing where he's like, you guys need to go and get the super terrorist. And it kind of all goes really fast because they have Kenji on the boat and they're trying to take Kenji to meet Mallory's people to get the information for Becca, which is Butcher's wife. And so then Stan is like, hey, man, you guys need to go get this terrorist. And that's when Homelander's like, who cares about Vought? We're the Seven. We need to go do this to try to rally them together like the Justice League. He has these heroic moments where you think like, oh, man, this guy's kind of a hero. But it's all, an act. It's all for his own vanity.
Yeah. It's funny because, like again, like you said, Stan is like, you've got to go get him. And he's like, you know what? Forget you, Stan.
We're going to go get him.
As the Seven. And it's like, all right, well, he's kind of.
And even in that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, man. Even in that little scene they have, he's like, who said something about Compound V? And then you see like a Starlight and A-Train back and forth, and you think that A-Train's about to say something. He's like, we had no idea.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah. Again, it was one of those where it was like A-Train was like, do I want to out her and like bring myself down, or I'm gonna keep chill on this one for now. Yeah. But then we get to the boat scene, which oh man, that one long scene is just, Frenchie's trying to be the good guy. He's trying to be like the sentimental guy where it's like, hey man, I brought you this drink and these chips, and I'm just trying to help you. And can you tell me how to talk to Kimiko? Can you tell me? He's like, I saw that y'all communicated. How do you do it? And he's like, it's our own language, blah, blah. We made it up when we were, overseas, kind of all that kind of stuff. And he was like, how do you do it? And he's like, I'm not telling you. And Frenchie's like, okay, cool. And so he puts the chips and the drink on the counter away from Kenji. And little did we know, we find out Kenji's powers where, a little bit more how strong he is. Because with one finger behind his back, he brings the can towards him, crushes it, makes a sliver out of it, and gets out of his, he kind of tied up or whatever. And then that's when he kind of like goes crazy and, Butcher,
the police find him.
Yeah.
And then he pops up and it just gets crazy after that. Like you were talking about the chase, and this is the main part of the episode, but the police find him and they're like, hey, we got the terrorist, Billy the Butcher killed, Madeline Stillwell, whatever. And then out of nowhere, he just pops up from downstairs.
Right. Yeah, he just pops up and he's like, there he is. And Butcher's on the phone or on the thing. He's like, hey, this is the owner. I have my papers. And then Mother's Milk's like, I thought you said you got this from a friend. He was like, well, you see, I haven't met this friend yet. That's how this works. And I was like, oh, okay. But he, the cops see him and that's when Genji kind of just goes crazy and destroys the helicopter, takes the water, and they start driving off. And then all of a sudden the boat gets hit, and it gets hit again. And they're like, what the hell is going on? And they look over and they see a bunch of like sharks and like fish and dolphins and stuff. And then like Butcher goes down to the bottom and sees that it's starting to sink. And he's like, all right, get on the other boat or whatever. And they get on it and they see this. Don't they see the deep after that? After they get on, or they start driving and they see the whale.
I think they get in the boat and then they see him pop up on the whale.
They see him pop up on the whale, and then he jumps up in front of them and he lands kind of like on that shore where it's like it's still got water on it, like it's kind of like the sandbar, and he's sitting there with Lucy the whale. Ironically, as they named it Lucy, and they're sitting there and. Huey, Frenchie, Mother's Milk, they're all like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? And Butcher's like, nope, revs the engine. I mean, just puts it in full gear and just completely takes off. And they go straight through the whale. I mean, just straight through it. And it was, that scene was just like, I had no words after that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what the hell did I just watch? And then we see them get out of the whale and they're like blood and guts and just like, I mean, everything is just covered on them. And Huey's just chilling there. He's like, I'm done. It's over with. We're dead. This is dumb.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to note that Huey starts out the season, episode 1, the leader. After Butcher leaves, he's self-proclaimed or whatever. He's the leader. He's trying to make the shots. He's trying to keep everybody together. Episode 2, he's kind of losing it because he wants to be with Starlight, but she doesn't forgive him for all the lies in the first season. Mm-hmm. So, and then Butcher comes back, so he's stressed out about that. He's falling apart. You start to see him fall apart. At this point of the season, he doesn't agree with anything they're doing. He doesn't think that they should turn over Genji or whatever like that. So he's at rock bottom. He even calls Starlight and leaves her. Every time he calls her, I'm like, why are you calling her, man? She's going to get killed because you're calling her. Why are you calling her? He calls her and leaves her this drunk message about, I'm at wit's end. I'm at rock bottom. I need someone to help me or whatever. And so he's out of it. By the time they hit this big ass whale, he wants to stay. He's like, just leave me alone.
Yeah, he is.
See him in that emotional state.
He's completely done. And it's a really good moment when Mother's Milk is talking to Butcher. It's like, you need to go get the kid because
you're gonna leave him. Yeah,
he's like,
really gonna leave him.
And then he's like, yeah, if he wants to stay here, I'm gonna leave him. And he's like, no, he's your canary. Which I thought it was kind of like that moment. It was like, oh, like okay, like.
Well, you see it with the Butcher because the Butcher does go in there, and he's like, hey, come on, kid, we got to go. But he's not good with relationships and stuff. No. So with Huey, like, just you get away from it, and then he gets aggressive with him. He's like, don't touch me or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he's like, whatever, I'm leaving. I don't want to deal with it.
Right. And then so Mother's Milk stays back, and Huey's like, why are you staying? He's like, well, if you're done, then I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this. And then that's when Huey's kind of like, all right, well, let's get up and let's start going. And so they get up, they get out of the whale, and they start going. And they see this little like tunnel way where they take everybody and they go through this like sewer passage, I guess, and that's where they end up. And then all of a sudden we see the 7, and the 7's like, where did they go? And Deep's like, they went through this way, but I didn't see them. I didn't get a glimpse of who all it was because I'm just so distraught because they basically killed Lucy. And Homelander's like, okay, yeah, well, you stay here and we'll go do this. And
because he wants to go with him. He talks to Starlight. It's so good. He talks to Starlight. He's like,
I'm so sorry for what I did.
New person, and she's like, nah, not happening. Not happening. And he tries to, and all the girls, Stormfront gets in his face and like tells him to back off, calls him a weirdo, and they all leave. He wants to be with him. He wants to go with them, but then Homelander's like, hey man, you hang back. Like you hang back here. And then he does this just totally dickhead move, and he's like, hey, would you think – it made me think like his whole shirt was ripped because he was like, hey, your gills are showing. It's disgusting. And like really backtracked the way he felt about himself. And then you show it's just like barely a little hole in his shirt. You can't even tell that.
It's like just a small rip.
I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
God, that guy's terrible.
It was – I mean, you see the Deep – talk to his gills and say I'm beautiful, and then Homelander's like, oh look, that's disgusting, like why are you
Superman
doing that?
The world's greatest hero.
He's like, you're disgusting, why are you doing that? And he looks down, it's a little rip, and it's I don't know, but I thought it was funny too because like even Stormfront was like, oh, get out of my face, like you're so weird, and they never met, like they haven't like no interaction with each other, and she still thinks this guy's a weirdo. So but the 7 go into the storm or in the drainage area, and they're all like split up. And Homelander's like, all right, A-Train, you go this way. And Starlight, you go this way, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of split up again. And A-Train, like, uses his powers and then starts having a heart attack. Like, he's like, clutches his chest.
That's when he first noticed that something was wrong with A-Train.
Yeah, and he's like, A-Train, what's going on? And, like, he's like, nothing, I'm good. And he's like, like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
he's like, yeah, I believe you.
And then we eventually see that Starlight finds Huey, and Huey's like, oh my God, like you got my message. And Starlight's kind of like looking at him like, I can't really be talking to you. And then Homelander comes in.
I was like, man, please don't let Homelander be around that corner. Sure enough.
He popped up out of nowhere, and he's like, he basically knocks him on the ground, and
He was all kinds of pissed because he was pissed at Starlight because he thought that she was back with him and brought him there, which that wasn't the case, even though they have been working together.
Yeah.
And then he was pissed that if Huey's there, then obviously the rest of them are here, except for the Butcher. He was surprised to see the Butcher, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, and he's like, he basically tells Starlight to kill him, and he's like, she's like, we can call the cops. Like, she's trying all this way.
Smart, which would make sense. It was smart that she said that.
And then the camera pans over to Huey, and he just kind of closes his eyes, and he's like, he's ready to die. Like we've already seen him at rock's bottom. He can't go any further. It's time for him to die.
Yeah, and it shows Butcher watching it the whole time, and Butcher the entire show, not even just this season, but the first season, does whatever Butcher wants to do. He's obviously showed that he'll leave Huey behind if he has to. And so you're watching this whole scene, you're just like, damn, this, because like I said, I read the comic book, and it's way different. So you're like, maybe Huey dies. Maybe that's a thing. Like, maybe he's not a main character in the show. Maybe he dies. Maybe this is because it doesn't make any sense for him to stay alive, especially with Butcher's character. He's going to secure what they have going on. His main goal is to get his wife back. So he's got Kenji. They're going to do that. And then here we are.
And Homelander just tells Starlight to kill him. Mm-hmm. Starlight's very hesitant on doing it. Then she starts her powers. And then that's when Butcher walks in and was like, hey,
so
you
cool.
miss me? And then Homelander's like kind of turns his head and he looks at Kenji and he's like, now. And Kenji just basically just throws the entire he throws like a car on him or something, like the rocks and the gravel and then the car on him. And then Kenji looks over at Kimiko, and Kimiko's like shaking her head and
trying to tell him not to leave.
And then he leaves.
Yeah.
And then he just gets up and leaves, and she chases after him and whatnot. And like everybody's kind of just like, oh my God, like what's going on? What just happened? And so the boys leave, and Homelander's still like in this rubble. And the next thing we realize is Kimiko and Kenji are on the run. And that's when we start seeing the real side of Stormfront.
Mm-hmm.
And
crazy. The rest of the episode was just crazy, man.
Dude, Stormfront is she's
up there with Homelander, or maybe
100, maybe passing him for sure.
And she chases him through these old broken down apartments, and she's just killing everything in sight, just destroying everything.
Yeah, they bust through this apartment. So Kenji goes through this apartment where this normal family's at, and she busts through. She kills. It's not 100% obvious that she kills him, but it is obvious. You know what I mean? Like, they don't show her kill him, but they're in there screaming. It pans to Kenji climbing out. Then there's no screaming.
There's no screaming. Yeah.
She kisses a guy on the stairs. That guy's out the window. So it's like, these people are dead, man.
And then she meets them on the roof, and she basically tackles Kimiko to the ground and pushes her away, and she's kind of rolls off, and she's kind of out of the picture for now. And she goes over to Kenji. Kenji's kind of beaten. I think she tackled him or something, and she goes over there, and he's on his knees, and she just starts throwing some words at him.
She gets real. And Stormfront. We should have known, but Stormfront is a name for a racial, a hardcore racist group of people.
Yeah.
And so, it is a thing that we should note that Homelander, when they were on the beachfront, he says, we're going to do this my way. I want the terrorist or the supervillain at the end. He's like, it's me. You guys do whatever you want to do. It's me. I bring him home. And then she got him on his knees, and she's spitting out some crazy racist stuff.
Yeah. And then she grabs his wrist and cracks him. Just bends him over, and the wrist, his bone popped out of his wrist, and she's like, oh, you can't use your powers now?
Which was cool because, like you said earlier, that's where we found out with the can, that's where his powers come from.
And she's like, oh, you can't use it, and she grabs his neck and is squeezing his eyes, and he's closing them. He's closing them, and she's like, no. She's like, look at me. And he opens his eyes, and she's like, there we go. And then snaps his neck, and then drops to the ground. And Kimiko's watching this. She is just, she's speechless. She's kind of in shock. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't attack her, but she's kind of just in shock. And then Homelander comes up and says, "What did you just do?"
Yeah, because he was watching it too. He popped up right when it happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, "I did it my way," and he was kind of like,
calls him Gramps too. Which I thought was funny.
So you should have kept up, Gramps. And I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Okay, we're seeing." Okay, and
it's
then
out of left field. I was like completely surprised by all of that. I was just like, I knew she was obviously had to be evil because she's with them, but I was just like, dang.
She really put up a good front for like the first 2 episodes. Like she really played it off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she played like she didn't really care.
Yeah.
Like Homelander is maybe not to the public, but to us, he's obviously evil. But this character isn't obviously evil even to the people watching the show. So that was kind of a thing that was like, like I said before, I thought she was just like comedic relief, but
yeah. She was very much she doesn't care for the outside stuff, but when it comes to like the let's get it done this way, let's get it done that way, she's going to do it like in the worst way possible. Yeah. And so that's kind of how the episode ends, I believe.
Yeah, then we get a little not a press conference, but they're like at like this homeless shelter.
That's how it is.
That's
and they're like, giving food. Well, I don't think it was a homeless shelter. I think they're doing like this little thing for like, the people at the apartments who lost their lives and stuff and lost their homes inside those apartments. So 7 is over there, and then they give like a little press conference at the same time, and then say like, the real hero is Stormfront because she's the one who killed the super terrorist, which is Kenji.
And so while this is going on, the boys were watching this. Like they were watching this on their phones and at the convenience store. They're back at the convenience store, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Stan's basically saying that like Madeline Stillwell was the one that created the Compound V with her group of rogue scientists, and that the Stormfront didn't kill those people, that Kenji killed those people, and that's why Stormfront killed Kenji. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to do it like a media spin.
They're backing up on their story, and they're using their Stillwell's death as
because before they're like the marketing crew is like, should we fess up to it or should we totally ignore it? Like, we need an answer, Stan. We need an answer. And the whole time he's like, I got it figured out. We'll see.
But what were you saying, Dom?
Oh, you guys finished it out.
Oh, well, no. Remember, she's talking to the press, and she says, the real heroes here are these people. And she turns around, and she like kind of from the camera's point, it's just her back. But from what we see is she is eyeballing Homelander. I mean, just staring a hole into him. And he's just like pissed off. Like, this is not how it should be. Like, I'm the leader. You are not. And like, I mean, it's just very serious moment. And then she turns around and she's like, these are the people who are the heroes, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just did what I was supposed to do. And blah, blah, blah. Just putting up that front. But when she turns around, she's like, like, I just outdid you. Like, take that. And so then that's when the episode ends. And then we get to episode 4, which is the most recent episode. It came out this past Friday. And it's called Nothing Like It in the World. And basically this episode is a very big, let's get Huey and Starlight together and let's develop their chemistry kind of episode. Butcher went to go see Becca. And Frenchie is just a drunken stupor right now. He just is on all the drugs in the world. Again, Butcher leaves. So it's Mother's Milk and Huey. And Huey goes to meet with Starlight, and they kind of talk it out in this park. And she's like, what do we do next? Blah, 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 blah. And he's kind of like, oh, I'm sorry about that voicemail. Don't think about that. And then he gets the call from Mother's Milk, and he's like, yeah, pick me up at this, at 7th Street or whatever. And Starlight's, can I go with you guys? Like, can I just tag along? And
because before that, like, so
Mallory and Starlight in the elevator.
That's right.
So Mallory meets with Butcher, and she's like, what happens next? They failed that mission with bringing the super terrorists. With Mallory really wants to bring him to justice because they think that he killed Raynor. Another one of her pupils. And so he gives Butcher the location of this character named Liberty, and she thinks that'll help. She also gives him the location of Becca because he's like, look, it's my fault. I thought she was dead. Here she is. It's like an act of, faith, kind of.
Yeah.
But then Butcher just like, hey, I'm leaving. This is the information. This will free you guys up. You guys will be good if you follow this. He just leaves the team. And then in the elevator, it's crazy. Another scene that makes my hands sweat. Starlight's in the elevator, which I thought was weird because, like, after the betrayal, it wasn't really betrayal, but like after the whole Huey thing where Homelander told her to kill him, and then they were just shown passing out the supplies and stuff together. And I was just like, man, it's weird that he's just there after everything just happened and no one's saying anything. And then so they get in the elevator together, and I'm like, damn, man, is he going to continue just to be normal? Because that would be weird. And it seems like it's going to be at first.
Right.
And he stops the elevator, and it's just like.
Yeah, he presses the emergency stop, and she's kind of looking over at him, and he's like, so you didn't kill him? And she was like, no, I thought it would be best if we took him to the cops. And he's like, but I told you, I gave you an order to kill him. And then he starts like digging his finger like right under her ribs.
Oof.
Ooh, like just it wasn't like he could have killed her, obviously, but like it was that pain where it was like she couldn't breathe. Yeah. She was very like, it was hard for her to breathe, but she could still like her pain tolerance is, she could still feel it. And so she's just like, she's trying her best, and he's like, don't lie to me. And she's like, part of me wants to just kill him right now because he broke my heart in the worst way. And then she's like, now, did I lie to you? And he's like, okay, you didn't. And then so he leaves, and that's when she says, hey, can I join you and, Huey and Mother's Milk? Can I join y'all on your little trip? And the trip is to go find Liberty, like you mentioned, this hero that Butcher gives the information to. And they're on this, they stop at this motel, and Huey's just this like this nerdy kind of like he's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he's like, all right, we got 2 bedrooms. He's like, we got 2 beds. Starlight, you'll get this one. Mother Milk, you'll get this one. And I'll tag with Mother's Milk. And he's like, good choice. Like it's kind of like that father figure of the group. And obviously that didn't go as planned. And man, Starlight's got some weird candy. Like I don't know about the.
I think it's because I thought about it a little bit. It's because with her mom being like this over controlling mom, just trying to make sure she wants the best for her. She probably didn't like, and it's explained like earlier in the episode between her and Mother's Milk. Her mom didn't like let her have like any sweets or whatnot. So like when she was eating that donut with Mother's Milk, she was like, reminiscing and whatnot. She said like, oh, my mom never lets me have donuts, but my dad used to, sneak out with me, and then we'll go grab a donut or two, and we'll do that. And then Mother's Milk goes in about him and his dad, about how they go get ice cream after church and all that. So yeah, it's just kind of explained it a little bit when we get to that scene with her and Huey at the vending machine. She's eating like all this chocolate almond joy to be exact. But yeah, it was just a little interesting scene that they had together. It just gives us more backstory on Starlight and her childhood at that point.
Oh, for sure. But then of course that turns into a big old sex scene, and Huey goes into Starlight's room, and they get it on basically, and it's a very interesting because he looks over and he's like, oh, I'll turn off the light, and she's like, no, I'll do it.
I thought it was weird.
I didn't. I was like, what? Really?
I don't understand her powers though.
I don't. Really, yeah, so. It's like, all right, well, I guess she can turn off lights with her eyes. I don't know. Yeah. But basically that happens. They wake up. Well, no, wait. Before that happens, we see a car get just absolutely destroyed.
When they're at the donut restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah, and that car just got obliterated. And Starlight is just being the hero in her, and she's going to help. And their Mother's Milk and Huey's like, whoa, no, like you can't do that. Like,
which makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And she's not understanding why. She's like, we've got to help this guy. Like, look at them. And she's like, no, the cops are called. The ambulance is on the way. The fire truck is on the way. If they see you, the 7 will see you, and then Homelander will see you. So, like, they're trying to put it in her head, like, no, you can't do this. They go to the motel. All that happens. Then they wake up and they go to the address that they got from Butcher, which is Liberty's address. They walk in this room in this house, or Huey knocks on the door, and this older lady walks up, and she's like, no, I can't. I'm not telling you. Like, get out of the way. And then Mother's Milk tries it, and he's more sympathetic with her. Tells her his past.
You learn a lot about him and why. Because he's just in the first season, he's just down to help Butcher, and you don't ever really understand why. And which I don't understand, they don't really ever talk about his powers, because he has powers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't ever talk about it in the show. They kind of showed it in that gunfight in the first season. He didn't get shot at all, but like they don't ever talk about it. But in this one, when he's kind of sympathizing with her, they talks about how much his dad hated Vought and why. And they don't go into specifics, but he says something happened to my mother, and then my dad didn't let it go until he died, and then he carried that hate over, which I thought was really cool. Kind of like an easy backstory on that character.
Yeah, it's he tells this lady what happens, and she basically says, like, I've given Vought the money, y'all can go away now. And they're like, no, we're not a part, like we're fighting Vought, like we're not a part of them. And so she lets them in, and she tells this gruesome story. Like, I mean, her story is just basically she was a younger girl, and her brother and her were leaving somewhere, and it was the middle of the night, pouring out rain, and the car stops or something, and her brother goes out to fix it, and Liberty like lands in front of her, and like her brother's like, okay, stay down, like, I'll look at it. She goes outside, and Liberty just like, again, this racist person just like calls him all these names, and then just like with one punch just like obliterates his face. I mean,
she blames him for a robbery that happened.
Right.
Who knows if that was even real? But she said it, and then she blows his head off with one punch, which is
exactly. And this lady, when she was younger, she goes and sees her brother like this, and Huey and Starlight and Mother's Milk are like, oh my God, like when was the last time y'all saw, like she's got to be 70 something years old. There's no way. And we haven't seen her or heard of her.
1979 is what it said.
And then the lady is like, no, she's this is her, and she pulls up a picture from the magazine or from the newspaper, and it is Stormfront.
It's crazy.
She points at Stormfront and she says, this is Liberty. And when she said that, I was like,
that was crazy.
Wait a minute. And it just, I mean, that's really all it goes into. And then basically what happens with those three is they leave. Starlight basically just says, hey, Huey, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun, but we can't do this anymore. Basically I had fun, but I can't do this anymore.
Because because the way she explained it was like, if we can have that, because they had fun, they were singing songs together. It was like a road trip. And even though Mother's Milk makes a lot of jokes about like, hey, this isn't a date, I'm not a chaperone, which I thought was hilarious. Yeah. But it really dives deep in that. And she's like, if we had that much fun on a mission to find out about someone murdering somebody, then like this isn't healthy. Like we shouldn't do this. Like we shouldn't be comfortable in this situation. We can die at any minute now.
And it makes sense. And of course, Huey, heartbroken, is kind of like, what? Like, again, we've got to remember Huey saw, like, literally was holding his ex-girlfriend's hands.
He was going through a lot,
His A-train, like, just went straight through her. Like, he's been through a lot, exactly. Yeah. And so he's kind of heartbroken. He watches her go down the stairs, and that kind of ends. And then we get to the Homelander part.
Mm-hmm. Because he's trying to clean up shop now. He's trying to make the 7 his now.
Yeah, he is with Maeve on a interview.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the interview is kind of like talking about like, why don't you have diversity in the 7? Like all of them are pretty much, Caucasian. Why don't you have any blacks or Asians or Mexican or whatever? And then he kind of makes a joke and he's like, well, we have A-Train, he's black. We have Noir, he doesn't really classify as a race. So, and he kind of like chuckles and he's like, and actually we have a gay. And then Maeve's kind of like,
oh man,
he's not out.
My hands were sweating again. I mean, it was one of those scenes where just like, geez.
I'm just like, really? Like, you really had to out her like that in the worst possible situation?
Because
like,
she just sat there.
Yeah, she just kind of sat there and she's like,
like, you can tell she's really uncomfortable in that scene. Like,
and then
super uncomfortable.
And then they go in the back and they kind of discuss what happened. And he was like, so who is she? Like, why? Like, and then Maeve's like, what did you do to her? And she's like, oh, no, it's fine.
Because at first she's still trying to say that you're friends. And he's like, no, you're not friends. Like I heard your whole conversation. You're not friends.
But then he starts getting really, like, pissed off at her when she's like, I left her for you. And he's like, no, you didn't. Like, stop lying.
He's just mad about the lies. Yeah, which was weird because he when he says Maeve's his only friend, like, I think he really means that. And so he really said, like, hey, man, I just don't want you to lie. And that's why I talk about the show makes you feel at these different moments for these characters, because he's like, hey, we're friends. You were the first and the only person that was there for me. Like, at the airplane scene on the first season, like, she was there. Like, she knows who he is. And so she's like, whenever she says, okay, yes. And he says, do you love her? And she's like, yes. And then so he's like, I just want you to be happy. Like, I know, do you not believe me? Which is no one does.
No one does,
like, But he's basically like, yeah, that's it. And that's how it ends. And so it's like, that was weird.
he wants everyone in the 7 to like him and for them to be happy, but he's going about the worst way in doing so.
He wants the 7 to be 100% under him and like not Vought anymore. That's why he benches A-Train, which I'm sure we're about to talk about.
Yeah. And so A-Train is like gets called into Ashley's office or something, I think. And then Homelander walks in and he basically just is like, yeah, you're out. Like,
yeah, because Ashley's like, oh, you're going to do this.
She's trying to steer away from that conversation. I forgot.
Because he sees that other speedster. Yeah, he sees that other speedster.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, what's that about? And she's like, no, he's here for Vought for Tots.
Yeah.
And he's like, I like fat kids too. And then that's what Homelander.
He's like, hey, I do good with fat kids too. What are you talking about? And Homelander comes in and he's like, okay, yeah, you're out.
Did you tell him yet? And then she's like, no, I thought we were going to have like a press briefing and stuff like that. And he's like, nah, you're out.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
And then A-Train finds out from Homelander that he knows about Compound V. He knows that he's been taking it. Yeah. He knows about his heart attack. Like, he knows all this stuff.
We're still friends, which I thought was weird too, that he's still
he's like, I still want to be
friends, man. He's a dickhead to these people.
He's like, I still want to be friends and stuff like that. But
he's like, listen, buddy, we're still friends. It's like, don't even worry about that. But you're out. We're going a different direction, is what he said.
Basically. But then we get into the final act, and I don't know.
I was definitely like uncomfortable.
Yes.
I'll put it that way.
When he goes back to the when he realizes.
Oh yeah.
When he goes back to because.
Why was he upset though? Because he went back because he was upset.
No. He went back because he was just like.
No, it's because of the memes. Remember, he was cycling through all those memes, and he saw
he saw all the memes.
And then he got pissed off.
And then he goes to before that, he actually like him and Stormfront are like talking to each other.
He goes to confront Stormfront. That's right. And then she gets in his face. He does the heat. He gets pissed off and he does the heat vision, but she backs him down again.
Yeah. She basically like kind of like seduces him in a way because she like turns walks around him and rubs his hand on his back and she sits down and she's like, and we're gonna do it my way, and like is very assertive, and he's kind of like.
Yeah, because she was like, I know you don't think this is going to be true, but she's like, you are the greatest hero, and I think that. And it just like definitely played to his ego. She's smart. And so he backed down, but then she was like, you don't know how to connect to your audience. And he was pissed, but he was also like, man, she's kind of right.
Yeah.
So it's like he was confused.
But remember before this, the uncomfortable scene, when he is with Doppelganger, as we thought was just a clone of Madeline, Doppelganger changes into like he like has like a malfunction or something, and he's like change back.
It causes him pain to be there for too long. So I think that's how the episode starts out. He's there in her lap, and then he's just like and then turns into a doppelganger.
And he stands there, he has his back to him. He's like, change now.
Change back.
Change back. And it's like a funny scene, but then he goes back to the cabin and again, doppelganger.
If this show can do anything, this show opens up crazy strong and it ends strong. Like that's one thing that it nails. Like that was a great opening, and then it also circles back to the ending. And then
I can, like Dom said, I got very uncomfortable watching this scene.
I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just like, this was. I thought he was going to change. I thought he was going to ask him to. Originally, I thought Madeline wasn't working, so I thought that after the Stormfront scene, he was going to ask Doppelganger to turn into Stormfront. So I was like, that's where this is about to go. And then it's going to be a thing. But then, that didn't happen.
The whole milk thing is just kind of it's
so funny.
So funny. Yeah. He like, Doppelganger puts his hands or his fingers in the milk.
So weird.
He's like, stop. And Homelander's like telling him to stop, and Doppelganger's like, what's going on? And then Doppelganger's like, you only appease to you, and he changes into Homelander.
So weird.
Homelander's in this lingerie, like I can just see the actor, like isn't it? His name is Anthony Starr, right?
Yeah.
I could just see Anthony Starr just like in that scene, just in his like lingerie, like see-through.
I mean, he actually posted a picture on Instagram of him and if you guys didn't see it.
He loves it, man.
And like he's just basically sitting there, and Doppelganger's like, yeah, you just like your own ego, and he basically gets down on his knees and like starts. Like,
I know when he started doing that, I was looking at my TV like.
I'm just like, what is about to happen? And it's all because Stormfront got in his head, and you see it this entire conversation. All of his responses to Doppelganger sound like they're coming from Stormfront. Sounds like the things that she said to him. Mm-hmm. He's like, I don't need anybody. I don't need
like Doppelganger just telling him like, hey, you just like your own ego, like you just want to stroke your own ego, and
like, I don't even need you. Like I don't need anything. I don't need my ego. I don't need nothing.
Exactly. And so like Doppelganger's like trying to seduce him and trying to do some weird things, and
it's so weird, man.
Homelander like looks down at Doppelganger and grabs him by like right here and lifts him up and was like, I don't need you. I don't need anyone.
Which was a great scene because it was him looking at himself. Like he didn't change back into Doppelganger, which I thought was great in the midst of all the weirdness.
And it's a different scene that we've seen. Like, I mean, it's so different from every other, like, I'm changing scene. Like, okay, in normal, like, Superman, superhero kind of Captain America type, they'll look into a mirror and you're like, okay, they're looking at themselves. This is like actually like,
he's choking himself out.
Yeah, and so like he basically snaps Doppelganger's neck, and
he still doesn't change back. He drops the
like he's stuck in that body forever.
Yeah. And he's looking at the dead body on the ground, and it's himself. I thought it was a great scene.
Yeah.
Again, it took me a second to appreciate it because it was like seconds. It wasn't a long scene. It was like seconds of weirdness, and then it just happened. And it was such a great scene. Homelander standing over Homelander. Like, this is, I don't need you. I'm above that now. I'm not that anymore. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen.
Before we end this and go, get ready to talk about next week, we do end with Billy and Becca reuniting.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, at the cabin. And they basically meet up in this like little central location. Well, she's going into her car and he's like in the back seat, like scrunched up. Mm-hmm. And she opens the car and he's like, is there any cameras on here? And she's kind of like, and he, she goes to the camera, says, I'm leaving you to go somewhere. And she drives to this, like the middle of nowhere, and they get out and they just like reunite and they're talking about all this stuff. And, they have sex and they're smoking a cigarette, and
he's saying, I'm gonna get you out of here, and she's saying something a little different. She's saying, you're gonna love him. This is gonna be good. She's excited to leave.
She's excited to start a family with him.
Yeah, you can honestly see it because she mentions it later, but in that conversation, you can see that he doesn't really say anything about it. You can see he's trying to figure out, the next step, which she brings up in the second conversation.
Yeah, and so basically she wants to start a family. He's not ready for that yet. He wants to kind of move on and get them out of here and start their own life. He's ready to leave. And she's like, yeah, you're going to love him. And he kind of goes, are you sure about that? I'm not really good with kids. I'm not the role model type. And then that's when she's kind of like
she knows him. She knows him better than anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you are only here because like your mission is to kill Homelander. Like that is your mission. Like you wanted to save me and you wanted to kill Homelander because you thought he killed me. Like that is your mission. This is my mission. This is what I want to do.
The kid will always be Homelander's son.
Yes, always. No matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah, and so like she leaves and she comes back and he's like, "Where's the kid? Thought we were ready." And they had a big old fight and she's like, "No."
They had a plan to get out.
Yeah, and she's like, "No, I'm not leaving. Like we have it perfect here. He does this. You know, he goes to school. He's learning. He's not kind of manipulated by the world that's going around. Like."
And her reasoning makes sense. She's like, you want me to leave him here to be motherless in a Vought factory just like Homelander was. So you want there to be two Homelanders in the world. Like, I'm not doing that, man. I love you, but like you want to live in a world where there's two of those fools flying around? Like, no way.
No. And he's and again, he just figured out, like Ryan literally just figured out that he has powers. Like all it took was for someone to just push him off.
And all he cared about was his mom. So imagine what would happen if his mom just left. So
exactly. And Butcher's not staying there. So like they basically don't come to a happy medium. And Butcher just, it ends with him leaving, right?
I think so. I don't remember. I know he yelled at her before she drove off.
He said something about her son. I can't remember exactly what he said, but then that's when she was the one that left. She was the one that left, and kind of Butcher just standing there like kind of hopeless at that point.
Yeah, because he was like, they will never leave us alone. He's Vought property. They'll find us wherever we go. And she was like, you just need to leave. And he was like, I'm obviously not leaving without you. And that's when she pulled up that thing, like, everybody's going to be on you in 60 seconds. So I'm leaving. I'm sorry. And then she leaves. So basically making him leave or he's going to get caught.
Mm-hmm. But that's basically how, episode 4 ends. I think this is a great start to the season. Like you said, like each episode starts off good. It has a good build and then it ends really well. And that's what this show is just amazing at it. And I'm excited to see where we go now because the Butcher Becca storyline is kind of like it's kind of stopped right now.
But he's not going to give up. So we're just interested to see what his next move is. There is one thing we forgot about episode 4 though. Black Noir is prominent in this episode. He hasn't been. I like that character a lot.
Yes.
They show him a few times in episode 1 or in season 1 where he fights the weapon or Kimiko.
Yeah.
But in this one, he rolls up on this IT person at Vought. Really weird, and I really like this character, even though he's evil. But like
he doesn't talk at all.
Yeah, and in the comic books, he's like the most evil. So it's like it's weird to see him kind of like.
I wonder if they'll ever go down that route with.
I don't think they will. I hope they don't. And if you're watching this and you don't care about the spoilers, I'm going to talk about it for a second. So in the comic books, Butcher is trying to find Homelander for the same reasons. He rapes his wife. His wife dies in the comics. But in the end of the book, in the final confrontation between Homelander and Butcher, for some reason, Black Noir walks up. And then they're like, hey, man, why are you here? And he takes off his mask, and it is Homelander. So you find out that Black Noir is a clone of Homelander. And Homelander didn't rape Becca. It was actually Black Noir. And Black Noir has been secretly like the super evil person the entire time. So I don't think they'll do it in this show. Just
because it seems
he just seems awkward and weird.
Yeah.
And he's played by a black actor, so I just feel like it's weird for them to do that. But he rolls up on this IT nerd, and it's very funny because she's just like, talks about what happened in episode 3, like he wasn't there, and he's like, he doesn't say anything. He just stands there.
He just holds up the little piece of paper and it's like Butcher.
She's like, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened, and he stands there, and she's like, I'll let you know whenever we find find out what's happening. We'll do facial recognition and stuff. And he just stands there, and she's like, oh, I can do it right now. And he sits down next to her. They run it. other scenes play, then they come back to it, and then they show Butcher, go over the vault fortress wall, flip off the camera, and then she's like, oh my God, he's, either here or at the vault, whatever. And that's where it leaves us. But it's like, why all of a sudden is Black Noir so invested in
Butcher,
where the Butcher is? Like, that's where I'm wondering what that's a new storyline or a new story like thread.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really hope we get to see more of him this season because, like you said, like he doesn't talk at all. We don't know much about him. He's kind of like there, like as a comedic relief in a way.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, with his character, like he's more evil in the comics. So I'm really interested to see how Black Noir is played out throughout the show. So I really do hope
in the show.
Yeah, he jumps emotions like really quickly. Like,
after the news broke of the Compound V, he was sitting in the hallway. It looked like he was looking at a picture.
Yeah.
And he was just sitting there. And I think that's going to have a bigger playoff in the end.
Well, even at the beginning of this season, and we didn't even talk about this about Translucent's
weird funeral.
Yeah, he's like really upset. Like he's like really distraught about it.
Yeah.
And so
that was so funny, like how they had like the clear
casket
up on stage. I was like, did his body like explode?
But no, it did. When the Deep is watching at the bar and he's like, "That's my shoulder. That's my shoulder." He like slams the counter or whatever. It's that part was just really funny. And then we kind of go back to it when Starlight is with Huey and Mother's Milk and they're on the trip and she plays the radio and every song is her song that she's singing at the funeral. And it's like, oh my God, will this stop? Like just a really good, this show is really good about going back and retouching up on things, but I'm excited to see what the Stormfront Liberty storyline is going to be.
Same.
I'm excited to see how
because I did see like some previews of where it's like it's Stormfront, Kimiko, and I think Starlight and Queen Maeve was in it as well. So they're all battling Stormfront. So I think that's probably going to be like the season finale.
Yeah,
because Stormfront's at a not parade, but like at a big event talking.
Yeah, like a rally.
Yeah. Talking about more stuff, which is weird. Again, she was just at a press conference with Vought, and they were naming her the hero. And then now she's at a rally talking bad about Vought.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see Kimiko walking through the crowd about to, I don't know what she's going to do because she's already failed trying to kill her once. And then Frenchie comes and saves her.
Mm-hmm.
We also see the Deep again in this episode. They put the Deep in every episode a little bit, and they're doing this weird dating thing. They're trying to find him a wife.
The entire episode, yeah.
It starts out, and me and my wife are watching. We're just like, because it doesn't even talk about the Deep. The first interview is just a random person talking about love. And
because I was just like, what is going on with this? Like, what is the storyline behind it?
Every so often they do a random interview.
Yeah, I thought they were going to get like blown up by Homelander by any second. Like I was expecting for one of them.
I didn't know what was going on. Yeah,
it was weird.
And then come to find out, like he meets there is one weird chick that he likes. He's like, that's the one. And you find out that the collective are trying to make him this,
find his wife.
And they're trying to make this ideal superhero for him to join the Seven again. Which I'm interested. I don't know where that story's going, but it's. With that last episode, with episode 4, it makes me wonder. The most things I wonder out of episode 4 are what's going on with the Deep and what's going on with Black Noir. Stormfront is going to do Stormfront. I know that's going to escalate. Homelander is obviously going to escalate. The Butcher, that's all that stuff escalates. We all know that's going to happen. But these two storylines, we have no idea what the collective of the church. We have no idea what's really going on with that. You know what I mean?
I think we see a preview in next week's episode that A-Train joins the Deep. So I really want to see.
See, that makes it way better. I
really want to see how that plays out throughout the season and what that little church community is doing.
Because there has to be a reason why they're so obsessed with him joining the Seven again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they something's going on in that
that's what interests me the most so far. The rest of the story is going to be good, but this is what has my attention.
I found it I find it ironic that like the girl that he was most enamored with was the one who was very sexual to him.
Yeah,
and he's like, oh, I found her. I found the one, and then the lady's like, nope. The other girl was it, and he's like, no, I don't think so. Like, it's very,
Eagle Archer is weird too. Eagle the Archer, because he's just there the whole time too. It's just weird to me. Like, he showed up.
He seems very like brainwashed.
Yeah, he showed up. The Fresca can keeps popping up.
Yeah,
and then that lady just keeps popping. It seems really weird to me.
It's definitely a storyline that's gonna be, like you said, it's not the main one.
It's not,
but it's the one that like a lot of people are like, what? Like, why?
It just pops up and you have no idea what's going on.
What's going on? But I mean, any last things y'all want to?
No. What? The next episode is called. What is the next episode? I have no idea.
It is called
Nothing Like It in the World. No, that was episode 4.
We Gotta Go Now.
We Gotta Go Now.
Yep.
I have no idea. That's what I like about the show.
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen.
The titles don't even like. They have nothing to do like with when we did this with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the titles had a little bit something to do with the actual episode.
Yeah, and as you watch the episode, the title made sense. Yeah,
or in the episode they say, like, I remember the one that Dom and I were like, it's a weird episode title, is the trout in the milk, or the trout in the milk, and we were like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then Sousa says it in the actual episode, and we're like, oh, wait a minute, like that's the title. So I don't know, but yeah, I'm really excited to see how this episode continues. Now this hopefully this video that when you're watching this, you have already caught up with episode 1 through 4, and episode 5 will be coming out Friday
How many episodes are there altogether? Because they just have 4 more episodes listed. There's only 8 episodes.
I think it's only 8.
8.
Dang.
And so we will be seeing episode 5 on Friday, September 18th.
So all the episodes should be pretty action-packed.
Yeah. So we're starting to get into the thick of things, really, with the show. So hopefully we'll be back, either, if not after episode 5, maybe then the final. I don't know. We'll discuss it, and we will get back with you guys. But again, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. If you're not subscribed to Lex and the Wednesday Pool List, go do that as well. They've got some really good content over there. Also go subscribe and follow them on all their platforms that they have: Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. Go do that to their channel and everything. And hopefully we will get back with you and talk more of The Boys season 2 next time. So we will see you then.
Yeah.